you mentioned Forbion, and you started there, you became partner, and Sander van de Venter was one of the, I think, co-founder of Forbion, I think, was on the show. And he mentioned, we invested in Argenx when there were like 5 people. And then by preparing this interview, I realized you were the one.
That's true. I think there were even 3 people.
3 people. Okay.
No, that's true.
You were the one leading and you were on the boards. Can you tell a bit about the story of how the investment came to be, how you came to invest, and then like...
Yeah, when basically Tim, Torsten, and Hans, the 3 founders of Argenx, they were out fundraising. And I think it was 2008. It was just when Forbion had the first closing of the Forbion fund, and it wasn't an easy time to raise funds. There were 2 seed investors already in the company, so they had a little bit of money to go out. But then at the time, it was Forbion taking the lead and putting out the term sheet for an A round. And we went around the block to look for co-investors. At the end, there was a nice syndicate. LSP joined, and we got some Belgian investors to the table.
How much was the round at that time?
I think the initial A round was like 12 million euros. Okay. So not that much, but it was sufficient to prove the technology. Yeah. And of course, there were mistakes made or the errors made. Well, not all the programs we started in the beginning, were still alive after a few years. What I have to say with this team, and it counts to diversity. Of course, they were all male, but they were different in character. So the 3 of them, they always had to discuss among themselves before they take a decision. And I'm pretty sure there were tough discussions, but pointing to the theme of diversity, they come out stronger with it. Yeah. And it was a fun time. I think I learned a lot, but taking the journey, we had the A round, we had then the B round, pre-IPO, then the IPO on Euronext first, which also was a long discussion. Shall you go direct to Nasdaq or Euronext first? At the time, you always take the decisions with the knowledge you have at the time and with the data you have at the time. I think that was decided. It took some time then to go to Nasdaq, and then that was also the time when I left the board. That was the time when FLOT.BIO came up. Much of my time was required there, and also the Argenx grew. They needed different input on the board. The companies you involved.
It's natural,
but it always has my heart to it. I have to say.
And now it's crazy. I mean, $20 billion company. I mean, massive success story.
It's also very much from the beginning the strategy, keeping your products close to your chest, developing them as far as you can, and that was what Argenx has done. They brought products to the market. They had follow-on products to the market. And also in the past, they were always open in, what can they do? What a partner can do? Looking outside, working with academics to in-source new ideas.
And especially also, advancing, the balance between developing your own platform and your assets. I think they were really good. Good at this.
When we speak about role models, there are a few role models. The model is a role model, but also the management team is a role model. Where also at some point in time, people from management team say, this becomes too big for me. I'm better performing in smaller companies like Torsten Dreyer. We were super happy that he joined one of our startup companies, which is Agomab in the early days. So there you see this cross-fertilization, allowing people to develop, even if it's outside your own organization. That's something where the industry and the ecosystem around Benelux, I think we are growing there.
Yeah, it's... I had Edwin from Argenx on the show as well, and he mentioned this. I think he mentioned that over 10 people from his management team at Argenx are now like running or founding biotech companies. Yeah. Not only in the Benelux, I guess, but let's say Europe or Europe. That's still like crazy.
We're one lucky of them where we have Cedric Verveken from Argenx, who's our CEO of Confer Therapeutics. Okay. But that's exactly what you need. They have such a learning curve, such an experience within these larger organizations. But at some point in time, it's either because of the structure, because of their own character, they would like to do something else. And more than welcome to join our smaller companies.
I think it's totally normal. It's funny because I feel like in biotech, it's always seen a bit differently, but in tech, it's pretty normal, and almost encouraged if you are, let's say, at Google or some startups and you want to go on to found something, for example, usually the team will support you. And for all the reasons you mentioned, but Yeah, that's good. I think it's one of the underestimated thing in Europe.
Yeah.
How many, I mean, compared to, let's say, 10 years ago, how much more talent pool and founder pool and is on top of the money, which is maybe more visible, but the talents. Yeah.
It's also one of the aspects, at least at FLOT.BIO, we had at the beginning while we creating new companies. But that means we also need to create the new management teams because every CEO was a first-time CEO at some point in time. So what we realized, the moment you give people, of course, people need to be the right character and have the right ambition, but you need to also give them the responsibility to grow. It's sometimes I have the examples.
The chance to grow, yeah.
Sometimes I have the examples. It's like a snowball sitting on the top of a hill. If that snowball doesn't roll, it doesn't become bigger. So you need to roll these snowballs in order to become bigger and get to the gravity to become the next serial entrepreneur and serial CEO.
I like that. I like that. I like your mindset. Yeah. And I guess and you proved it with Argenx, and I guess on Argenx also, for you personally to set up FLOT.BIO, I guess was a great track record, basically.
Yeah.
I guess the return is not public, how much you really made on the return, but I can imagine if you invested in 12 million Series A.
I guess you need to ask Forbion for that.
I can just imagine. I don't know when was the IPO, how much they raised, but I can imagine it's a very, very nice multiple. So.
It's a nice success story, and I think it's a good return for all the investors in
there.